Okay, this is tape 17BZ78 debriefing at Soft Ground.
Nobody knew what was going down at Soft Ground. Nobody did. Nobody could even think about the monstrosities that would be created from the chemicals that were being pumped into the fishing grounds. And when the military showed up, what did they do? Consolidated power. Nobody helped. Nobody helped us. We were alone. These creatures running about in the night, terrorizing all of the villagers, terrorizing the rest of the citizens around the area. Somebody had to stand up. Somebody had to pick up the mantle and go in there and do what was right, and that was exactly what I did. I went into Soft Ground. I took my life and put it on the line to make sure that everyone else was safe. I went to that factory, and I never walked out the same. Hey everybody, it's Raine from Initiative Tabletop, and I know I'm dressed a little odd, but that's because we're looking at a game today called Cross Hares Testing Ground from 1A Games. It's exactly what the game says it is. It's a classic trail-based game with a brand new theme and a lot of modern day elements tied into it. In Cross Hares, you're going to be going about a board, and your end goal is to get to the end of the board, defeat the big nasty, and then win the game before anybody else can. And of course, since you're trying to do this first, you're going to employ all kinds of tactics, abilities, use items, and just generally be awesome. More awesome than your opponents. So, without further ado, let's crack this open and I'll show you a little bit more about what I'm talking about. Alright, so here is Cross Hares Testing Ground, open, on the table, ready to go, set up for 2 players. Like I said earlier, Cross Hares is a classic trail-based strategy game with modern twists. So think back to games like Candyland, where you roll a die, you move, something may or may not happen depending on the space you're landing on. Except this is much, much more bloody and just downright menacing than Candyland will ever hope to be. In the game, you're going to choose a character. Each character has got some special abilities about them. They have a title, a little bit of a background, they have an advantage during the game, they have items that they can carry, and specialties that they can do. Each character is a little bit different. This guy's a scientist. He's not like the other character that we just looked at, so he's going to have a lot of different abilities. So you're going to choose a character that you want to play, and then you're going to take one of these little pawns, these little plastic pawns here, or you can take an illustrated pawn, which is basically just a chit cutout of the character that you're playing, and you're just going to set it up. They're all going to go down here at the bottom of the board where it tells you a starting area. The goal is to get from the starting area to this factory way out here. And in a short game, you can play it one way. In a long game, you can play it another way. And I'll go over that in just a little bit. But just know that the goal is to get from one end of the board to this end of the board first and be successful at an encounter at the factory in Soft Ground. So the board is actually broken up into different regions. Soft Ground is the area over here, and the story of the game shows that this factory, for whatever reason, is contaminating Soft Ground and is leaking that contamination back into the world of Cross Hares. But you've got a lot of different areas like Sazu, Pipit, Far Cut, Soft Ground, and these different areas are different sorts of terrain. For instance, you've got some forest land here, some desert looking area, some dark areas over here, water, and all of those will come into play in different times during the game. But in order to get playing, the main thing you're going to do is take this green die and you're going to roll it. So you're going to roll it, whatever number you roll, you're going to move forward that many spaces, and then you're going to either land on a blank space or you're going to land on a space with a symbol. If you land on a space with a symbol that's like this, it's like a little target, crosshairs, then you're going to place a token on one of your specialties on your characters. So if you land on a crosshair symbol, you put a token here, and then it unlocks an ability that you can have for the rest of the game. If you land on a little baggy symbol, looks like a treasure bag here, then you're going to do the same thing, except you're going to put one of those treasure bag tokens up here in the items section of your character that unlocks special items for them to use. For instance, a map, you must add 1 space to all forward movement rolls, a rope, dead ends have no effect on you, things like that. So we have the crosshair marker and the item marker, and you can also land on a space that will allow you to draw cards. These are stronghold spaces. This is a stronghold card. For instance, this card is protection. It says play this card to protect yourself from radiation or toxic elements. Because you might also land on a symbol that kind of looks like a radiation symbol, and you have to draw a testing ground card. Now, these testing ground cards are going to be cards that are either going to be enemies for you to fight or just events that happen that really can mess you up. For instance, this one says weather, acid rain. It only hurts for a few hours. Go back 5 spaces and lose 1 marker or card of your choice. Now, the radiation suit, it protects you against radiation or toxic elements. But there are cards in the stronghold deck that protect you against weather, which is exactly what this acid rain is. So along with the weather and nasty effects in the testing ground deck, you can also draw attack cards. Now, these represent nasty things that are out in the area that are going to be attacking you on your turn. Each one of these has a defense, and you have to roll this combat die. When you roll the combat die, you have to get higher than their defense to basically defeat them and overcome the card. Now, the cool thing about that is each character has some abilities that allow them to add to their attack roll. There are some items in the Stronghold deck that allow you to add things to your attack roll or even avoid attacks altogether. As you're going through, you might actually land on a question mark space, and if you roll the movement die and get the question mark, this also comes into effect, where you then roll the blue die. The blue die is called the research die. When you roll it, it can have various effects. For instance, the one that we just rolled, this A, is pretty awesome. There are adventures that take place here in Testing Ground that add to the game. So think of them as kind of like side quests. If you roll an adventure, based on the area that you're in, you're going to draw the adventure card. The adventure card has on it what happens while you're in this adventure. You don't have a choice. You have to have the adventure. So the adventure is going to have some sweet art on it. It's going to tell you a little bit lore-wise about what the adventure is. And it says, for instance, when the night fell, so did a simple place called Brytown. It was a plan put in motion by the tough clan known as the West Side Scavengers, and you're here to see it happen. But what will you do? So it's giving you a choice. You can take advantage of the situation or take from the defenseless. You can take 1 marker and move 2 spaces, ending your turn, or you can help the townspeople and pick off a few scavengers. Then you're going to basically have to roll the challenge dice and then see what happens. So there's a lot of different adventures that can take place. When you roll the research die, you can also just roll the crosshair icon and gain a token. You can also roll the item icon and gain a token, or you can get the tree. Now, there's also tree spaces on the board. When you roll the tree, you flip the next event card. Up here at the top, there are going to be some event cards. Now, this event card is going to have things that can happen and trigger on your turn. For instance, this one says, the game extender, you roll the challenge die. This applies to all players. 1 to 4, go back 6 spaces. 5, go back 8 spaces. And 6, go back 12 spaces. So when you roll the tree marker or the event marker on the die, you simply flip this new card up. Then for the rest of the game, and whenever anybody lands on the tree marker on the board, the event goes off. So think about it this way. Roll the die, flip a new card, land on the event space, the event goes off. It really adds a lot of dynamic to the game because there's so much going on at once. But let's get to the meat and taters of this, the whole end game, the end point. Like I said earlier, your goal is to get from this part of the board all the way over here to the factory. Now, if you want to have just a quick and simple game, when you get to the factory, it's got a defense of 3, you roll the combat die. If you get above a 3, then you win. If you lose, you have to go back 2 spaces and try it again on your next turn. But if you're a true hero, you're going to see what happens when you get to the factory. Instead of following the normal rules, when you get to the factory, you roll a die. On this card, it's got a lot of different outcomes based on the number that you roll. For instance, fortune and glory. You can get an enemy attack if you're expecting company. Too much power, you basically shatter the power source in the factory and then you absorb all the power and it kills you, but you die a hero. So this is a way to add some variety to the game and make it just a truly epic experience. But that, in a nutshell, is Cross Hares Testing Grounds. Alright, so that was a quick look at Cross Hares Testing Grounds. Now, like I said earlier, this is a trail-based strategy game. Think like Candyland, but on a much bigger, much more crazier scale. Honestly, some people are going to look at this game and say, I don't like it because it's like Candyland, it's just a different themed version of Candyland, or it's a different themed version of this game where you roll to move and you have spaces. That's true. But something that I really like about Cross Hares is that 1A Games made this their very own world. Not only did they make it so that they've got their own theme, but the game has a rich background, a rich storyline. The characters all have well thought out backgrounds, and honestly, it's a little over the top, and that's what I like about it. Plus, the artwork is simply phenomenal. If you've seen any of the artwork from this game, such as the concept art or any of the artwork on the box packaging, it's fantastic. The artist did an amazing job really bringing this game world to life. And that's a huge reason why I play the game. All of the cards in the game show sweet little pieces of imagery. All of the characters have their own unique style. And if you even want to take your game further, you can get small miniatures of the actual characters to have in your game, which I think is awesome. But there's a lot of little things that I didn't mention when we went through the overview of the game. You can actually battle other players for spaces, and you can fight each other, and you can play cards on each other to interrupt movement. You can have these wild, crazy adventures in these different zones. You know, this game is said to take an hour or two to play. Sometimes we'll set this up and we'll end up playing for 3 hours because we're going back and going forward and having these adventures and doing all these cool things. Cross Hares Testing Ground is actually an amazing game if you want to get people into the world of thematic games. I think it's perfect. And honestly, I'm going to tell you, if you see a copy of Cross Hares Testing Grounds, grab it before they're all gone. I promise you that you're not going to dislike it. Anyways, guys, thanks for checking out the video. I hope you liked the little flair that I added to it. And honestly, I hope that you enjoy Cross Hares Testing Grounds if you pick up a copy for yourself. So until next time, happy gaming.